У парку перед будинком провінційного парламенту Онтаріо в середу 7 вересня відбулося перше відзначення Дня української спадщини в цій провінції. Цікаві слова виголосив усім нам відомий ведучий Торонтонського радіо Тед Волошин.
Завдяки старанням консервативного члена провінційного парламенту Джері Мартинюк, всі три партії офіційним актом одноголосно встановили день 7 вересня Днем української спадщини в провінції Онтаріо. Цього року відбулося перше відзначення цього свята. Всіх привітав господар свята, президент провінційної ради Конгресу українців Канади Іван Бейкер.
One of the things that they say about Ontario is that multiculturalism helps to define us, that diversity helps to define us. And we're fortunate to live in a place where a place like Ontario, where we've attracted the best from around the world for many, many decades. And 120 years ago, the first Ukrainian immigrants to Canada settled on or touched on Canadian soil. And the date was September 7th, 1891. Now, since then, many generations of Ukrainians have settled in Ontario and in Canada, and they have come for a variety of reasons. Some of them have been fleeing oppression. Some of them have been seeking opportunity in Canada. Some of them have been seeking to be reunited with their family, but all have been seeking to live an even better life here in Ontario.
Цікаво було послухати слово Стівен Пітерс, перший канадець українського походження, що став спікером онтарійського парламенту.
My family came in the early 1900s on my father's side, my mother's side in that second wave, 1928-29. My father's side settled in Saskatchewan. They got their quarter section of land and they started over. In 1937, my grandfather lost his farm and he left Saskatchewan and arrived Toronto as Dmytro Petrobetsky. And he couldn't get a job at Massey Ferguson because they don't hire communists. And somebody said, change your name. So 2 weeks later, he shows up as Dick Peters and worked till he retired at Massey. I am proud of my roots and where I come from. As I retire, I'm going to be visiting the Ukraine and Consul General Alexander, and you've done a great job as Consul General. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you. But I look forward to going to the Ukraine and finding out where I came from. So to all the organizers, thank you. To Donna and to Sherry and to Jerry, thank you. That was such a great day. And ladies and gentlemen, you don't realize how difficult it is to have a piece of legislation passed and then receive second and third reading that very same day. That was a special day, and those three individuals made it happen. And I will be eternally grateful for them for that. So.
Головним спонсором офіційного акту був Джері Мартинюк.
I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here today and being at the passing of the bill for second and third reading. It made a great impression on everybody in the House to see the galleries full of supporters of this bill. It may not have passed unanimously, and that's the only way it could pass that day, without your support. And I tried to acknowledge each and every one of you that were there that day in Hansard. If you ever have a chance to read Hansard, it's rather dry. However, I tried to recognize each organization that was there in support. I wanted the world to know the strength of the Ukrainian community in Ontario. Thank you.
Дуже гарно говорив про перші роки своїх батьків в Канаді відомий ведучий Торонтонського радіо Тед Волошин.
My family came to this country back in the 20s. My grandmother and my grandfather, before they were married, both landed at Pier 21 in Halifax and immediately went off to what was then Fort William, which is now Thunder Bay. My grandmother left for Thunder Bay to join her sisters who had already emigrated there from Ukraine. And my grandfather came on a sponsored situation where you came here as an immigrant and you immediately were found work, and that was part of the job. We bring you here, you work here under a contract. And he worked for a paper mill for a number of years before he and my grandmother teamed up and were married. He then moved to Toronto, where he worked as a window washer. And as has been noted in the past by the speaker, he was one of the many Ukrainians who had to alter his last name on a number of different occasions because it wasn't really the kind of name that the general population wanted to hire. With a name like Reoriak, that soon became either Herrick or Hunt, depending on who was hiring him at that point in time. He left to Toronto and then moved to Windsor, where he and my grandmother started a motel, which they ran for years, and in the interim gave birth to both my mother and to my aunts until they finally moved here to Toronto. In the 40s, my father came from Ukraine, also via Halifax and Pier 21, and immediately upon his arrival was told that he had a job waiting for him in a place called Kapuskasing in Ontario. Not knowing the language at that point, he misunderstood Kapuskasing, thinking it had something to do with kapusta, which is cabbage, and thought he was going to be a cabbage farmer. When he arrived, he was told that he was going to be a lumberjack and asked, "Do you have any experience as a lumberjack?" To which he said, "Oh yeah, all kinds of experience." He had none. But he was pleased and he was thrilled to have this opportunity. Now, I'm not going to take a long time to speak here because, and I point this out because brevity is not something that Ukrainians are known for when it comes to speaking. And when I grew up, I recall going to many Ukrainian functions and weddings and rallies and listening to the speakers at the time who spoke on and on and on and on and on. And I could never understand, why are these people speaking for such a long period of time? And it didn't dawn on me until a number of years later that because they could. Because for the first time, they came from a land where freedom of speech was just a fantasy. And so now they arrived in this wonderful country, in this fabulous province, and now they have this opportunity to speak, and they were going to speak. Many of whom have passed away, but are still speaking as I speak to you. And that's what they found when they arrived in this great country, in this great province of ours. They found freedom. The freedom to speak, the freedom to seek the kind of work that they wished, and the freedom to live wherever they wanted. And with that freedom also came great opportunities. The opportunities which, of course, didn't exist in their homeland.
На кінець програми танцювальний ансамбль «Десна» виконав цікавий танець, який хореографічно віддзеркалює українську дійсність в Канаді.